Good morning, everyone. It's June 30th. This meeting is being recorded. I hope some of you are brave enough to join me live this morning. But if you're not, I totally get that because today is a tough topic. It's all about mistakes, and it's hard to lead with our mistakes. Now, I'm opening this up to you guys. And if you want to ask me questions, there are a couple of ways you can do it. I've got Facebook open, so I'm able to look in the thread if you want to post it there. And if you post in the thread, it doesn't appear on the recording. If you want to join me live, it's really, really easy. You need to go find the thread, click it that says free training Thursday. It's the same link every week. So when you click that link, you'll be able to join me live here on the screen. And when I do the recording, I'll do my best not to put you on there. Don't worry. Or you can just leave your camera off. That's fine too. But if you want to ask me questions, please feel free to do so. One of the things you'll learn about me as you get used to my style of teaching, I create safe spaces. If somebody wants to be snarky, they will immediately not be in my circle, right? We all are here to support one another. And so my goal for today is to take you through some common mistakes, not all the mistakes. Of course, I would love to answer your questions and interact with you, but that's okay. If you're watching this on a replay, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you clicked the button to learn more about common practice mistakes in 2022. I always like to put the date on these because you never know what's a mistake today might be just common tomorrow. That's a weird thought, but you never know. So yes, these are mistakes that I have gotten from my inbox and of course, de-identified from consultations that I've done over the years. I'm watching the thread. So if you want to throw a question in the thread, I will not say your name and I will talk about any issue that you're having and help you out the best I can here. So a couple of things. Remember, if you are watching this in before 2023, Cindy Doyle and I are going to be doing a Get Shit Done Day in Austin, Texas, 3 days of getting shit done, your stuff. And so I'm going to post a QR code in a little bit. So you'll have an opportunity to sign up for that. Its spaces are limited. We're only allowing 20 folks to come for that week. It's down on 6th Street. We found a cool, funky hotel. We got a chef. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to have a really good time. And of course, we're going to get shit done. So if you enjoy my style of teaching, if you've worked with Cindy Doyle before, you know how she teaches too, then it's going to be a match made in heaven. And we hope to see you there. Again, I'll show you the QR code in just a bit. So let's talk about mistakes. I know for me, probably one of the most terrifying mistakes I made was not putting aside money for my taxes. I had been in public schools for about 14 years before I started private practice. And honestly, even at, whatever I was, 34 years old, I just wasn't that aware of money and taxes. I'd been a salaried worker. It just didn't seem, every year I paid my taxes, but it was like, TurboTax or H&R Block. And all I did was I handed them the W-2 and then this and poof, they did their accountant magic. And I went one more year without getting audited. Well, my first year in practice, my accountant looks at me and he says, "Congratulations, you had a fabulous year. That'll be $10,000. I'm like, what? What? So I'm like, is there a payment plan? And so, of course, that's when I learned about filing an extension. And that gave me until October. But while you're waiting for October, that clock does not stop on the interest. So that $10,000, I was able to pay a little bit at a time, get my taxes filed in October and, paid the penalties and all the things, right? So over the years, one of the biggest mistakes that I learned how to avoid, and I talked about this in our training last week, this June has been a lot of money issues that we've talked about here. And of course, one of the things I talk about a lot is putting aside money. So for me personally, learning to pay quarterly taxes, learning to set aside a certain amount every month. I even use a bank called Capital One, which is completely online. I think they have a few brick and mortar shops here and there, but they allow me to open as many savings accounts as I want to with no charge. So I took the Dave Ramsey course, Financial Peace University, as I was getting my business together to learn how to be debt free and set up an emergency savings account and invest and all of the things. So when I opened my Capital One account, it was like having the Dave Ramsey envelopes, which he advocates for having an envelope for everything from your vacation you plan to take next summer to, oh, what if my car gets, I need to fix it, right? So Capital One is what I use, and I set aside a certain amount every month in my Capital One savings account. And then if I need another account, I open it up because Capital One does not charge me. So that's a good thing. So personally, that mistake was pretty punch in the gut, like really made me question, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I've stepped in here too deep. I should have known better. I mean, it hit me in every part of my mindset that says I'm not valued and valuable, loved and lovable. And it crushed me. I mean, it really took having a good support team around me to say, you know what, this happens. It just happens. And so I hope you find that the Step It Up group and the other Kate Walker training groups are there for you as well, because mistakes just happen. Another common mistake. Now, I did not make this one. This is actually one, a friend of mine went to a counselor who used Venmo. Now, if you are not familiar with Venmo is an app that allows you to pay and receive money from individuals if you have the app on your phone. Great idea, but if you don't have the privacy settings set correctly, then everybody sees that transaction happening. So even if you have the privacy settings set correctly, it's really, really easy to misuse, right? It's one of those things that maybe in a few years, everybody's going to know Venmo and they're going to know how to set the privacy settings. But regardless of that, regardless, it's not a HIPAA compliant platform, right? So anytime, and this was a question that appeared in the Texas Counselors Creating Badass Businesses group last week, or in another thread that I'm in. When somebody asked about, does my website host and domain host, do they have to sign a BAA? That's a business associate agreement, a BAA. And the answer is not if you're not collecting protected health information. So for my websites, my clinical website, achievebalance.org, I don't have anything on there that collects client or potential client information, right? There's no form where people fill out this, and this and hit send. I don't do anything with clients through my website. Everything where I interact with my clients happens through a HIPAA compliant scheduling software. So the rule of thumb is if you're collecting any type of information, right? First name, last initial, first name, address, anything that could be considered identifiable to your client must sign a business associate agreement. And Venmo most certainly does not do that. Now, if you decide to use a merchant service or a credit card service or something else, I know Ivy Pay, people talk about that one. Basically, it's just the system that takes money from their account and puts it in your account. It depends on what information is collected. And the best thing to do there is to talk to a trusted attorney to find out, okay, is this enough information that I need to have a BAA, right? I know for my system, I can only see the last 4 digits of the credit card number. And where I can see the whole credit card number, that is absolutely a HIPAA compliant system. So it's tricky, but that's what HIPAA professionals are for. And it's worth it to talk to an attorney or to a HIPAA auditor, or not an auditor, but a risk assessor. And we have some of those on the Kate Walker training page, you can actually go to our blog and see a interview that I did with Vanessa Hillis of They Them Consulting, and they talked a lot about their job as a risk assessor, and I highly recommend you take a look at that. So using Venmo, don't do it. Just don't do it. Another common mistake that practice owners make, and I'm looking just to see if anybody's joining or if they are deciding to post any questions, and that's okay. Y'all just keep being shy. That's fine. Ask me questions, but be sure to tag me. So if you post questions here in the thread, tag me. If you're watching this on a replay, of course, you're not going to tag me anywhere, but feel free to reach out, right? support@katewalkertraining.com, and we'll send you a link so that we can do an introductory phone call or an email, and I can figure out if I can help you or not. So the second mistake I want to talk about is old paperwork. I use summertime and the winter holidays as sort of my woosah, break. Let's take a break. Let's look at everything, kind of go through, take inventory. What do I need to fix? What do I need to kind of update? For those of you who don't know me or know how I teach, this is maybe news to you, but I'm a little bit of a rules junkie, right? I love looking at rules. I get all of the updates from the LPC and the LMFT boards. I have friends on the boards. I like to stay in the loop. And when I find out new information, I keep it on a list. Now, my paperwork, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that it is updated every single minute of the day. But I do take time at least twice a year to go through every bit of my paperwork and comb it for changes. So for example, something that changed fairly recently was the information about in your intake paperwork that you hand your client, what what email do you call client if you want to complain against your counselor, right? So it used to be at TDLR, and then it was Health and Human Services. Well, it changed again. So your intake paperwork that your client signs must have the new information about BHEC, the Behavioral Health Executive Council. So I got that in as soon as I could, right? Because that's going out to clients. And every time I give them the wrong information, that's not good, right? So a very common mistake, even one made by yours truly, is not having updated information in your intake paperwork so that you are totally in line with your state rules. And y'all, I love ACA Code of Ethics, and they are our guide, but ACA Code of Ethics isn't law, right? It's not something where if you break necessarily, I mean, of course, there are places where the Code of Ethics aligns with our laws, and if you break one, you have broken the other, but you must know your state licensure laws. That is a huge mistake. I hear it all the time, and it's okay. I hear people taking my 40-hour training to become an LPC or an LMFT supervisor in Texas. They'll say, well, I just haven't read the rules in a while. That's okay. Not everybody's a rules junkie. You don't have to be, right? That's why you have people like me. You have organizations like Texas Counseling Association. You have folks who are able to give you the information that you need to make these changes that are so important. So go through your paperwork, pay attention, take a CE on current ethics. There's some great attorneys out there that do ethics CEs for you. I do great ethics CEs, if I do say so myself. And as a member of Step It Up, you get all of my trainings and the transcripts for free, all organized in one spot. So if you're watching this on a replay and you are not in the Step It Up group, look down here below and you'll see a link to the Essential Guide for Self-Employed Mental Health Professionals, and that will take you to the Step It Up group. You can also go to Kate Walker Training and join Step It Up. It's a great place to go if you're ready to level up your practice, because everything's free in it, right? All the stuff that people have to pay money for and get tickets for and all that. Everything I have in my course catalog, every workshop that I give is absolutely included in the Step It Up group. All right. Now, the last mistake I'm going to talk about is probably the most important. But before I do, I want to share my screen. So I know a minute ago, I talked about the Get Shit Done Day with the amazing Cindy Doyle that's happening in, let's see this screen. There we go. It's happening April 2023. So if you're watching this on a replay, if it's before February 2023, you still have time to register. Grab your phone, click that, and you will be taken to the opt-in. Now, this is a very intimate group. It's a small group. And so we're interviewing everybody because we got to make sure that everybody's on the same page. This is for folks who really want to level up their practice. And again, we've got this cute little funky hotel in Austin, Texas. We've got a chef who's going to help, who's going to cook all of our meals. We're going to have a good time while we're getting shit done. So if you're interested in this QR code will put you on the list, and then someone could reach out to you and you can set up a call with me or Cindy and we can tell you more about it. So the last mistake I'm going to talk about is boundaries, folks, boundaries. This is tricky, right? Because we want to do the most good. I mean, we got into this business because we wanted to impact communities. You wanted to help people. And it seems so trivial to say, well, I'm not going to, email's fine. I don't mind when my clients email me, or texting is fine. I don't mind when my clients text me. They don't abuse the service. They don't use it for therapy. Well, nobody does until something goes wrong. I mean, really, that's what we're talking about here. Mistakes aren't when everything is going right? It's when the texting is overused or abused for therapy. It's when email is used constantly and your clients get angry because you missed an email or you missed an appointment change. And they said, but I emailed you. You knew I wasn't coming. And you're like, oh gosh, I guess I missed it, right? So in one sense, boundaries with your time and how you're communicated with protects you financially, right? Because your clients can't say, well, I emailed you, you should have known, that no show's on you. But it also protects you here, right? Your energy. Every time your brain goes to check email, there's a little gland right here that secretes a little pop, and it excites your autonomic nervous system, right? So for 60 to 72 seconds, depending on what you read, you've got this stuff churning through your body, right? Even if you say, no, it's fine, I'm not stressed, your brain's different. It's telling you differently. The problem is you're used to it. So you're used to that coursing through your body. And then you check your emails. You're like, oh, crap. That's okay. I've got a no-show. That means I have to fill that spot. Churn, churn, churn. Here goes more dopamine. Just dopamine basically says act, 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 right? Do something, do something, do something, do something. So you're texting, let's say your clients are texting you, right? Same thing. Even if it's just, I just want to confirm my appointment tomorrow. I know for me, this buzz is literally a trigger, right? After so many years in business, I have gotten to where this doesn't get connected to clients anymore. It's only connected to my kids who have me on an annoying group text where they send funny memes to each other. But there was a time when this buzzed, I could feel, and what's that, right? This huge, heavy sigh. Well, it's my brain doing what brains do best, right? They get me prompted to action. So even though I was unaware, and this is as a new practice owner, I would never have said, oh, that stresses me out. I would have said, oh, I'm excited. It's a client, or, oh, good. I'm so glad they contacted me because I was worried about them. These boundaries over time, when they are eroded away, have an impact on your energy, which is another way of saying it leads to burnout, right? So what you can handle today, you may not be able to handle as well in 5 years or 10 years. Remember, If you are used to my teaching, what I try to preach is you are too important to lose, right? Your communities are going to rely on you. And if you allow yourself to get burned out and you quit and you take that service away from your community after they've grown to depend on you, that's not fair to your community. I had a nonprofit called Ann's Place. I had a large practice. I think I had 7 offices at one point. I had a staff. Then I had my nonprofit. Then, of course, I'm a mom. I've got 3 kiddos and I'm trying to be a human, right? And have just, an existence, right? Finally, I looked at everything and I said, okay, I want to start Kate Walker Training. I want to offer the 40-hour course to become a supervisor in Texas. Something's got to give. And it had to be the nonprofit. Right? When I looked at just how everything was working and the amount of time that was going to be needed to start my online course company, I had to let go of Ann's Place. And it made me sad. I was very, very sad about that. But what I realized was I had so much bandwidth after I closed it. Now, I still get phone calls. This is the sad part. I still get phone calls from the local the local school district where Ann's Place was a part of their resources. It was a low cost sliding scale resource for Montgomery County, Texas. And so I still get phone calls from people, and I know they're desperate, and I know I'm just one of their last folks on their list. Actually, so hopefully I'm the first phone call, and they've got a few more phone calls to go. And I always think, if I just found a way to keep that open, because the community had started to depend on it. But here's where we are, right? You have to protect this energy. You have to make sure you're able to do the best work you possibly can and not get sick and not make silly mistakes and not burn out. And that means you've got to protect your boundaries. So that's with calls with clients. That's with text messaging with clients. That's with emails with clients. Those of you who are supervisors, or if you're watching this because you're in the Step It Up group as a perk of being in the Kate Walker Training 40-hour training course, you have to have consequences for your supervisees. That's a huge boundary, right? If you look at your boundary and if you look at your supervisee and you just say, hey, don't do that again. You hear that silence? Right? That's a boundary that's only about, that high, right? If you think of the difference between like a picket fence and that little border that goes around your garden just to keep your mulch from dripping away in a heavy storm, that's a weed barrier you've basically set up, right? And when your supervisee makes another mistake, because that's what they do, it's not because they're bad or they don't like you, they just make mistakes, you're going to get pissed. And you're going to get frustrated, and that's going to take that energy. And then we go down the ethics road, right? Because now we have this whole, okay, but I just want you to do better. I don't want to make a remediation plan. When you hesitate to make a remediation plan with specific, measurable, trackable goals that are observable, that you must meet as a supervisee, you have lowered your boundary. And that is one of the most common mistakes that I see with even seasoned supervisors, right? We just feel like, oh my gosh, Kate, if I set that kind of boundary, if I have that conversation, if I give them a remediation plan, I'm going to lose them, or they'll file a complaint against me, right? Well, let me tell you, one of my favorite mistakes, and if you're watching this on a replay, welcome. You may have heard this one before. So I had a complaint filed against me by a supervisee that I had to fire. Okay. And I lived through it. The board was on my side. They recognized that I had taken all the steps that I should have taken, from the contract to evaluation to remediation to termination. And that what do they call that? A no bill. I didn't even have to open my mouth. So that was back in the day when it was kind of like the hall of shame, and you had to walk up to the front and kind of hang your head, and the board would be like, okay, now we're reading the complaint against Dr. Kate Walker, and hearing your name on that PA system. Oh, that makes you want to vomit, right? Or made me want to vomit. So yeah, it's possible that your supervisee might file a complaint against you. But you know what? If you've done your job and you paid attention to our free resources, right? Hello, new supervisees, our supervisors out there, right? You get all of my resources for free for a year in this Step It Up group. If you don't want to join the Step It Up group, then go to the Facebook page, Texas Supervisor Training. Tons of free resources, lots of folks who can mentor you and who will be willing to consult with you, right? There is no reason that I can think of why you don't have the resources you need to set the boundaries you need to feel good. Yeah, and if a complaint happens, it's kind of like that stuff we spray on our pans. What is that? Pam? Kind of just, it's going to slip right off because you've done a good job. So really, that's what this is about today. It's about you doing your very best, not being perfect, right? Everybody's going to make mistakes. So common mistakes, please don't feel like you're the only one who's made them, and you're going to make more. Good news, right? So this training on June 30th, 2022 has been about common practice mistakes. And this is for the Step It Up group through Kate Walker Training. So thank you for joining me. Again, if you're watching this on a replay, I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching it before February 2023, you still have time to join the GSD, the Get Shit Done retreat in Austin, Texas in April 2023 that I'm hosting with the amazing Cindy Doyle. So I hope you check out that QR code I showed you earlier and get on the list so we can get you out there. You guys have a great day. If you have questions, post it in the thread if you're in the Step It Up group, or send me an email at support@katewalkertraining.com. Have a great day.